So now that we have some really helpful information about how children grieve, what their needs may be, some behaviors they may exhibit, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off, and that was starting to look at specific things that we can say or do to help them. We'll talk about some suggestions and tips that you will hopefully find helpful, both personally and professionally. We all appreciate having some practical suggestions, so let's consider some key pieces of advice. Rather than just always asking why when we're talking with children, let's use some other phrases, such as how come, or tell me about it, or can you help me understand? This helps kids feel more willing to open up and not like they're being judged or as though they're causing problems. We talked earlier about integrating life and death topics into everyday conversation. Don't overlook those teachable moments, including death, but also use stories, things on TV, books, and so forth, to expose the topic just as we do other topics in life, such as stranger danger, what it's like to go to school, etc. Be cautious of God talk, as you don't want to make it an adversarial relationship with God. Saying things like he took them, he wanted them, he needed them, he wanted them because they were so good. That can really be confusing. Religious explanations are fine if they're kept simple, but remember, depending upon the developmental stage, religion can still be very abstract. It's important to always be honest with emotions, explanations, as well as what you don't know. It's okay for adults not to have all the answers. It's okay to tell children that you don't know, or that you will look into their question or think about it, but don't forget it. You do need to come back and address that question and whatever was underlying that question. Along those lines, never tell a child that they're wrong, at least when it comes to how they're interpreting or perceiving a death experience. You can try to give them other information and other options, and then let them draw their own conclusions. See what they think. Kids will ask more questions if they want to know more information than you've already provided them. This helps you not give them too much information or more than what they're ready to hear. As you're talking, and more importantly, as you're listening to grieving children, here are some other things that are important to remember. I'd like you to push pause and read through these items for yourself. Try to think of specific ideas or examples that come to mind that you could do or use with a child. Which ones would you have gravitated toward or appreciated when you were little? Which ones might not have been so helpful for you? Then remember that just because it might have worked or not worked for you, doesn't mean that it would be any more or less effective with a different child. Each one of us is unique, and kids are included in that statement. Sometimes you'll find that you have to try a few different things before something really connects or fits with that child, and that's okay. So push pause, look at the list and try and think of some examples, and when you're ready, go ahead and push play to continue. Now let's look at preparing children for a grief event. When somebody's really sick or maybe injured and on the brink of death, there's so much happening that it's easy for adults to be overwhelmed and forget, or maybe just not know how, to explain things to children. We need to be able to explain what's going to happen or what just happened to that person in age-appropriate terms, and then let them know what will happen to the body. For example, the funeral home director may come and lovingly, gently take their body back to the mortuary to get ready for the funeral. Let kids know that they can ask questions at any time, and that maybe if that parent isn't always available for questions due to their own emotions and tasks at hand, then let kids know who it is that they can talk to. Maybe it's a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, or a close family friend. Let them know that no question is a bad question or a stupid question, and even though you might not have all the answers, that you'll do your best to find out and get back to them. Let the children know that they're going to see people. Maybe they'll see family or friends or neighbors, co-workers of the person who died, And let them know that these people are going to be having lots of different feelings. Some might be crying, some might be angry, some might be off by themselves, some might be giving everybody hugs. Just give them a heads up so they're prepared to see all different types of emotions on the faces of people that they know and care about. Let them know that these emotions aren't because of anything that they did, but rather people are just sad or upset about the person who died. Also let them know they might be seeing more of these people at their own house or even later at the funeral. You can see that there are other suggestions here listed, such as being on eye level with the child, being affectionate or comforting as much as the child prefers, as well as what's appropriate based on your relationship with that child. And then also we have some reminders about using concrete language and avoiding cliches. Oftentimes, when people are uncomfortable or emotional, they don't know what to do, and so they say things trying to help. However, sometimes these things aren't really helpful at all, and they can actually put undue pressure on those family members, including children. Comments like, "Now you need to grow up and be the man of the house," can do far more damage than people actually realize. That's really telling kids that they no longer have permission to be a child anymore. They need to be grown up, they take on adult worries and adult responsibilities, and they don't have any room for mistakes. But that's just unfair, and oftentimes people don't even realize what they're saying. Kids' questions can be really beautiful and insightful too. Oftentimes they make us as adults stop in our tracks and really think. This quote from Paula Gunn Allen's poem called Grandma Dying is a perfect example. She says, "Do you suppose that when Grandma dies, more of her stays than goes? I hope so. I imagine so. And to many that might be a warm, comforting thought." Much like we need to prepare children for an impending death, we also need to provide them with information to help them prepare for a funeral or memorial service. Again, let them know what they'll see and hear. Describe the different ways or opportunities that they might want to become involved, and then be sure that you're helping them to do whatever it is they want or need to do. We can use play activities to help them process what it will be like before they go, or to work through what they experienced while they were there. This helps adults understand where child's level of understanding is, what their questions are. This would be like using that funeral play set that I described to you in the last part of lecture. Funerals give everyone a chance to say goodbye to that person and the way life used to be, as well as an opportunity to say thank you to the person and the role they served in your life. Encourage children that if they would like, they might make a special gift to put in the casket, urn, or grave. Give them choices. When you're at the funeral, do they want to go up and look in the casket? If so, would they like to touch the person? That's usually okay, and if so, allow them to do that, even if that means you have to find a different adult who feels comfortable taking the children up to have their own moment with the deceased. I've been that person in my family since I'm more comfortable with this topic. I'm always the one who goes up and is just there in case any of the children want to come up and touch their hand or ask questions, because they notice that the person looks like they're sleeping and we can explain that they're not really asleep, or they wonder why their skin looks a little bit different color. And we can nicely just explain that, they feel cold to the touch because remember we said their heart isn't beating anymore. They're not alive, and so they don't feel warm like we used to. And then we can remind them nicely that they don't feel any pain. They're not hot or cold. They're just, kind of at a different place, which again is really hard for kids to understand, but we can address those in very comforting ways. Sometimes it just means you have to find that person who's willing and comfortable taking the children up there if they so desire. Of course, we don't ever want to force kids to go. We don't want to force them to touch them, to kiss them, or anything like that, because if we force them, that could be traumatic. If they want to do it, it's not traumatic, and that can be a very beautiful experience. It all depends on how that situation is handled. So ultimately, we want to give them choices, but then we have to allow them to change their minds. They might think they want to do something and then say no, or they might say no and decide later they want to, and that's okay. It's also helpful to have kid-friendly activities at the funeral. Little things like coloring books, cars, or dolls can be helpful. Remember, kids can't grieve with a lot of intensity for long periods, and that could even mean just getting through the funeral. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed to have some side activities for them to participate in. This will help the kids as well as the adults. Finally, be sure to have a specific person appointed as the helper for the children. Sometimes parents aren't able to be that person, so find somebody who can be there to sit with them, help them go to the bathroom, answer their questions, refill sippy cups and snack bags, all that stuff. Sometimes the physical needs of children get overlooked during this time frame, so those things are equally important. Remember, children experience all the same emotional responses as adults, they just don't know what to call them, how to explain them, or how to get them out in a way that really works for them. They'll often act out their grief, and we want to look for those signs or behaviors to help understand how they're feeling and thinking inside. Grief, for anyone, is multidimensional. It affects all different aspects of our lives, and it has ripple effects even into parts of ourselves and our lives that we could not have foreseen. It's like this for kids too. They just don't have the ability to understand it yet, nor the skills to cope with it all on their own. We also need to remember that many secondary losses are associated with that primary loss or that death. Remember earlier in the semester we talked about this. After the death, there might be a lot of changes. Maybe they have to move out of their house, maybe to a new city or start a new school. They may have to shift responsibilities at home to take care of things that that person used to do, which means that there also may be other people in the house now helping out from time to time. There's all kinds of secondary losses that can occur, and it's important that adults realize this. And they don't just think that once the person has died and is buried, that everything will go back to the way it was before. It won't. It never will. They have to have time and support to develop that new normal that we've talked about. We know that grief is internal and mourning is external, and regardless, the children need opportunities to do both with their family. Some families aren't able to do this though, and the result is that family members feel alone and isolated in their grief experience. Everyone needs reassurance, especially children. Things won't be the same as they were before, but that doesn't mean it's going to be hard or bad forever. Reassure them who will care for them, who will meet their needs, and who they can go to for anything. We don't lose people. Their impact is forever imprinted and woven into our lives. They will forever be a part of us. Because of this, memorialization activities are important for us all. They're especially helpful for children who can use these activities as play to help work through their grief. Here are some good ideas for things that kids can do to help remember and honor their loved ones who have died. You can use some books to read and an open discussion. There are a lot of really good books out there, not just for adults, but for kids and teens of all ages. Maybe you use some as a family. Maybe some are for each person on their own. However that works best for that child and his or her family. Maybe they can create memory boxes by decorating the outside and then keeping special items or mementos on the inside. They can write letters, draw pictures, make artwork, or any other type of hands-on activity they might enjoy. Maybe they like to listen to a certain song or a certain type of music. Families might want to continue special rituals or even make new ones to remember the person who died. There's all kinds of rituals, of course, and I've just listed a few of them here for you. Of course, being around others who are also grieving can really be a very uplifting, powerful experience. Groups aren't for everyone, but many people really do thrive in a support group environment. No one's judging them or telling them how to grieve. They can just listen, share if they want, and be a good source of support for people they can relate to. Finally, there are any number of videos, dolls, or games that are available or can be modified to work in opportunities for sharing about the person who died. In the groups I used to run, we'd do things even like write words on Jenga blocks, and then when you pull that one out, you would share an example of when you felt that feeling or when you experienced that type of response from someone. Or we'd write words on beach balls to toss around and catch. Whichever one your hand was touching is the one that you shared or had to think about with the group. The list is endless, so don't be afraid to just be creative. Try something new. Besides, kids love being silly and laughing, so even if your idea doesn't work the first time, it'll still be a good bonding experience. While we hope children all have support and healthy outlets for their emotions and their grief experience, we know that sometimes that's just not enough. As healthcare professionals, you'll be trained to keep an eye out on your patients or clients. So here are some red flags or danger signs to watch for. I ask that you read through the list and take some time to think about each one of these. How might some of these things seem normal or expected at first, but then become more concerning over time? If they begin to impact a person's ability to function on a daily basis, or they're getting more and more intense 6 months or more after the death, it might be time to refer them to professional help. So take a moment and review those. As I said, be watching for the severity and duration of symptoms. If you do become concerned, remember that we've already gone over some great information about when to intervene or who you might refer to. Back in our earlier lectures, we had a slide that listed normal grief reactions, and we also talked about what resources might be available in the community where you live. Ultimately, just like the saying goes that it, quote, takes a village to raise a child, it's also nice if that child has the support and encouragement it needs to cope with life's challenges. A significant death is no exception.